My bad. Can you all hear me? Let me know, please, in the live chat. Thank you very much. There's going to be an audio live in which I will explain the paranormal establishment behind the culture of smoking pot or pot smoking. All right. So, okay, thank you all for being here. It's me, Ari Daada, Rashid. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist. And first thing first, I have a question for all of you. Please answer in the live chat. How many of you have heard of this fallen angel Daada before? Let me know in the live chat. Have you ever heard of this demon Daada? Let me know. All right. Now, let's keep it simple. When Satan, real name Hillel, we call him Lucifer, but his real name is Hillel. When Hillel and the fallen ones were kicked out of heaven, there are around 500 million of them. Yes, there are around 500 million fallen angels. When the Heavenly Father kicked them out, or when they were actually banned from heaven, they were smashed down on the earth. Since we're smashing on the earth, they've been deformed ever since. Okay, some of them still look a little like their previous state, but in general, they all look and sound horrible and deformed. But those entities, they still have their inherent abilities, even though they are in a weakened, rotten state. Fallen angels can only obtain stability amongst themselves by draining the human species. So fallen angels need to sexually and emotionally drain the human species. How do they obtain this? By keeping us in a state of fear and anxiety. It's only then the demons can feed off our life sources from our energy fields, and then they become stable and relevant. Because fallen angels have no relevancy whatsoever. Hope you understand this. It's not like some churches tell you that there is this so-called kingdom of darkness existing out of principalities, which are smaller, tiny kingdoms, and that they have legal rights over the human species. None of that is true. Fallen angels have zero rights on the earth, zero entitlements, and no lawful permissions. You hear this? Repeat this after me in the live chat. It's very important. Fallen angels have zero rights on the earth, no entitlements, and no lawful permissions. Repeat that in the live chat. It's very important for you to understand this, because too many believers keep talking about this kingdom of darkness, which does not even exist. What demons have is an insane asylum where it's civil war 24/7. That's what demons have. So please repeat in the live chat after me. Fallen angels have zero legal rights, no entitlements, and no lawful permissions. Repeat in the live chat, please. I'll wait for you. I want all of you to repeat it in the live chat. It's very important because you need to remind this. Because too many of you have been influenced by this kingdom of darkness crap, which makes you think Satan is so powerful and so lawful in oppressing us, which he is not. I'll wait just an half minute more so that all of you can have the chance to type it out and reply in the live chat, because this needs to stick with you. For those who already did it, thank you. Fallen angels have zero legal rights, no entitlements, and no lawful permissions. Simple as that. All right, 20 seconds more. All right. Look, the only thing fallen angels have is us being in a neglected state. That's the only thing they have going for them. So what they aim to do is to keep all of us, believers and unbelievers, in a neglected state. Now, this is easily accomplished, unfortunately, because fallen mankind itself is neglectful in various areas. So we don't even have to discuss that. What I'm about to discuss here is how this specific fallen angel, Daada, and his minions, because remember, there's no such thing as unity amongst fallen angels. It's an insane asylum where there's civil war 24/7. Legions are militias of fallen angels protecting the angelic princes. Yes, there's a hierarchy amongst the fallen angels, but it's a one based on paranoia and violence, because those demonic princes are at risk of being beaten up by the crowd of demons. Beaten up, molested, whatever. Demons have no peace, no ease, and no harmony. Absolutely not. They get that when we are, are tricked into the same condition they're in. So, a little bit more about this deity, Daada. You also spell it D-A-D-A, but it often also spelled D-A-A-D-A. But let me tell you more about this demon. This demon, this fallen angel, he looks like an African. You have a portion of the angelic beings who look like, you say, black people. Because angelic beings, they all look like human males. Some have wings, some have not, but that is their natural way of looking. They have various, there's diversity amongst them. Some have long hair, some have short hair, some have curly hair, some have straight hair. Some are tall, some are short. They have diversity in voices also. So the angelic beings are quite diverse in how they look. And a portion of them, they look similar to, as you can say, black people. Now, from those who look like blacks, who look like human beings, remember, angelic beings are all male, a portion of them were kicked out of heaven. Around 3.5 million of them. Those are called the Ogun spirits, or as they were called in ancient Europe, Nixies, or in the Netherlands, Nikkers. And that's where we have the term nigger from. Nigger in English comes from nikker, or nekker, which is Dutch to refer to those Ogun spirits. Fallen angels that look like Africans. All right, so Daada is one of those Ogun spirits. Why are they called Ogun spirits? Because they're under the leadership of another fallen angel whose name is Ogun. So now you know how the kind of hierarchy is amongst them. Because Ogun, this fallen angel, has his own government to govern the rest of the black fallen angels. And that government is called the Orisha. And Daada is one of the Orishas. That says is Ogun. Before I continue, is the setup clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Okay, it's clear to Marie. It's clear to the rest also. I asked whether the setup of how the Orishas are is clear to all of you, and that Daada is one of the Orishas. All right. Unless you're driving on the road, I would appreciate you answering the questions, or I can confirm that you understand it. But okay, let me continue. When and there's just a little bit of history I'm about to give right now. Before the reign of Mansa Musa, was a Malian emperor in West Africa. This was somewhere in the 14th century. A little before that, you had a big migration of West Africans towards North and South America. Now, this was far before Columbus, far before the transatlantic slave trade. Those Africans that migrated to North and South America, some also ended up in the Caribbean, they started their small towns over there in North and South America. These were no colonies of Mali. These were just foreign communities of the African diaspora. You also had Moors. Moors were the Judean Moroccans or the Black Moroccans. Back then, they were just referred to as Moroccans, but the Moors had a big financial grip over Europe back then, and they also crossed the ocean to North and South America. The blacks or Africans from the Mali region, or let me say lower in West Africa, they brought with them their ancient Egyptian-based religion of worshiping Ogun. When the transatlantic slave trade began in 1444 at the hands of the Portuguese, many of the kidnapped Africans that became slaves also brought with them this religion. And throughout the transatlantic slave trade, this religion became the secret practice amongst many of the enslaved Africans in the diaspora. When slavery was abolished in the 19th century, this religion kind of died off because many of the African diaspora, they've converted to Islam, to Christianity, or they began to practice nature-based religions. However, as of recent, since the mid-20th century, this Ogun worship, which is based on the ancient Kemetic religion of ancient Egypt, it gained popularity. And right now in Brazil and United States, it's booming. So when the African diaspora began to show more interest in this Kemetic lifestyle of ancient Egypt, the Orishas, just the government of fallen angels of Ogun, they decided that they need to come up with something that appears new to attract the African diaspora. Because the Ogun religion, which is still in its pure form practiced in Brazil and also in parts of Nigeria and Benin till this day, in its pure form, it looks quite ancient. And because it looks quite ancient, to a lot of people in the Black diaspora, it may be a turnoff. So the wizards involved in this Ogun religion in both the United States and in Brazil and other places, they decided that they had to invent a new religion that would contain a big portion of truth from the Bible, but at the same time, there will be a twist to lure people back to the mysticism of ancient Egypt. But they would not explicitly mention the link to ancient Egypt. That would be a big suggestion, this new religion. Because Christianity had a firm grip on the African diaspora already, it was not possible to enforce full form. Even many African Americans today who practice what they call the Kemetic sciences, they have a almost watered down version of it, which still has some biblical influences. Because the sex obsessed, both sex and booty hole obsessed religion of ancient Egypt in its open form, like it did in ancient Sodom, that even today would be, a lot of people would be horrified by it. So there's a watered down version of it. But still, these fallen angels, the Rishas, they insisted on maintaining the grip over the black diaspora, and they realized that, we can also help other fallen angels out by making sure this new religion will become a subculture that will attract people from all ethnicities. This is how what you call the Rastafari movement began. How many of you heard of the Rastafari movement? Let me know in the live chat. Okay. I need to share my screen now. Hold on. Hold on. Can you all see the screen I'm sharing? Let me know, please. Okay. Let me read with you. Hold on. Let me make this a bit bigger, so I know for sure you can read it with me. One more time. Good. Rastafari, sometimes called Rastafarianism, is a religion that developed in Jamaica during the 1930s. It is classified as both a new religious movement and a social movement by scholars of religion. There is no central authority in control of the movement, and such diversity exists amongst practitioners who are known as Rastafarians, or Rastas. Rastafari beliefs are based on a specific interpretation of the Bible. Central to the religion is a monotheistic belief in a single God referred to as Jah, who is deemed to be partially resided within each individual. Rastas accord key importance to Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia between 1930 and 1974. Many regard him as the second coming of Jesus and Jah incarnate, while others see him as a human prophet who fully recognizes Jah's presence in every individual. Rastafari is Afrocentric and focus attention on the African diaspora, which is believed is oppressed within Western society or Babylon. Okay. Now, there's a few things I want you to pay close attention to. It developed in the 1930s. The 1930s was quite different than today. In the 1930s, Jamaica was a crown colony of the British Empire. And as a crown colony of the British Empire, racism was the norm in Jamaica. You had this whole division between light-skinned Jamaicans and dark-skinned Jamaicans, which exists, unfortunately, till this day. And the island of Jamaica was often also neglected by the British Empire. which led to droughts and all types of problems locally. So the population of Jamaica, which moves from African ancestry, a little bit mixed with the indigenous who already lived there, which were also from Africa, that population, it longed for autonomy from the British Empire, but it was a divided population because the people there grew up under British rule. They spoke English, they had their accent, of course. So they wanted to be away from the British Empire, to go their own way, but at the same time, they were holding on to. So it was a bit of a conflict in between. So this was fertile ground for any cult to come up and take root in Jamaica. It's not only about Jamaica. Anytime a country or a big community is in social distress, that social distress becomes the fertile ground for cult leaders to become popular. Now, as I mentioned before, in this movement, it's based on the Bible, but there's a twist to it. Now, here, all of this over here is clear. A single God. Jah is another way to refer to Yahweh, because in ancient times, instead of Yahweh, you always say Yah or Jah, so that's biblical and historical. And that Father residing in each individual, that is amongst believers. That's what we call the Holy Spirit, or the Ruach HaKodesh, as you say in Hebrew. Where you have the twist is this deep importance of this Ethiopian emperor. Let's go to him. Was emperor of Ethiopia, king of Eritrea also. His end was a bit tragic also. And just one thing, this guy, while he was alive, he disowned this association with the Rastafari movement. He refused. He didn't tolerate people referring to him as the second coming of Christ or as a prophet. He did not. So you have this God figure, this deity that called Haile Selassie, who was a real human being, alive, a Judean, and he made plain, I'm not the second coming of Christ, so I want this to stop. However, this movement was based on resistance against racism, and a lot of the blacks in Jamaica were also dissatisfied with the failures of the church in stopping white supremacy. This dissatisfaction made the cult grow. But of course, they couldn't fully go back to the Kemetic religion. They had to keep it somehow Christianized. But here's the thing. Fallen angels, they need you in a neglected state. So of course, fallen angels are not going to be happy with you. Let me stop sharing the screen. With you being in a fully delivered state, that state of holiness. Demons would want you to be in that state. So demons, through their human agents, they installed this habit of smoking pot. Pot, also known as marijuana, by the way. They installed this culture of smoking marijuana in this new cult that was established in Jamaica. So, does it mean that every Rasta out there is willfully worshiping demons? No. Are there Rastas who are actual real believers who want to serve Jesus? Absolutely. There are many Rastas out there who are true believers. However, they received elements that hinder them in daily life. And this is something I want you to pay attention to. Demons will not come to you with a pure lie. They will not. If they would do that, they would lose. Demons will come to you with facts, true facts, mixed with a little bit of misinformation. And it's the little bit of misinformation that will hold you back. Because you'll think, hey, I'm part of a movement where we follow true facts. And there are many true facts in the Rastafarian movement, many true things they call out on. However, the small twist is that in the Rastafarian movement, there is this escapism which says they all have to either go back to Africa or be centered on the mother continent Africa. And that's why they had this historical figure. Back then, Haile Selassie was not historical, was still alive. But for the Rasta movement right now, Haile Selassie is still an important figure. Now, there's nothing wrong with seeing Haile Selassie as an inspirational figure. Nothing wrong with that. Even people who are not Rasta can do that. And Haile Selassie had some good qualities also, absolutely. But the moment you deify this man, Haile Selassie, who himself made plain that he's not God and he doesn't want to be associated with any cult deifying him, anytime you begin to deify Haile Selassie, you are in trouble. Because Haile Selassie is not God, he's dead. Jesus has to come back to resurrect him. So anytime you begin to venerate Haile Selassie, you become psychologically confused. This psychological confusion will have a backwards effect on your mental health and your physical health. And disappointment is doomed to come because Haile Selassie is not God. He doesn't hear your prayers. He cannot answer your prayers. He cannot guide you in life. He cannot. He's dead. So this is a big problem. Not just with Haile Selassie. Anytime you deify a human being, you're actually worshiping the dead, because that human being will pass away one day and Christ has resurrected them. So necromancy is what goes on in religion. Not only the Rastafari religion. So think about it. You have this social movement that started in Jamaica. When the black population of Jamaica felt oppressed, and they were oppressed indeed, when they had a lot of psychological issues because of being oppressed, and they were longing for a big escape. And what they say about Haile Selassie is that when Haile Selassie arrived in Jamaica, suddenly began to rain. And that's why they saw that as a sign that he's the second coming of Christ. First of all, there are seasons in Jamaica throughout the year when it's dry. That's true. If the rainy season is starting, certain people arrive, okay. If a political figure arrives when the rainy season begins, that's not coincidence, simply means that may be a more suitable time to visit Jamaica. But because a lot of people are traumatized and looking for a way out, they associated these two events. It begins to rain. Haile Selassie arrives as a sign that he's really God incarnate. Now, many Rastas today know very well that Haile Selassie is not God, not Jesus incarnate. They just see him as a big historical figure. Well, such Rastas, they're very close to deliverance. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with having dreads. There were ancient Israelites with dreadlocks. Having dreadlocks and that look is not wrong with it in itself. Okay, having dreads is a common thing a lot of people in ancient times had. Even biblical figures had that. Think about Samson. And the Nazarenes also had dreadlocks in ancient times. So there's nothing wrong with having dreadlocks. There's nothing wrong with the soft music, that soft style of reggae. There's nothing wrong with any of that. What is wrong is this high emphasis on Haile Selassie as an escape from present day problems. But here's the thing, the real Haile Selassie is dead. He can't do anything for you. So you need to have a substitute attitude to feel connected to this dead individual. And that's where smoking marijuana comes in. Of course, smoking marijuana will make you relax. but also side effects with smoking it. I'm not going into discussion that smoking marijuana might be better than smoking cigarettes and all that. No. When you smoke marijuana, there are going to be side effects on you. Marijuana can be used for medical purposes. Absolutely. So the plant marijuana, it has good use. Or is it cannabis? Well, anyway, I'm not a biological expert, but that plant, it has good qualities. But in the Rastafarian religion, they smoke it up. Look, this smoke of marijuana, not only within the Rastafarian movement, but also outside of it, it has become a symbol for many young people who are upset with the system. There are many people worldwide who are not Rastas, but they feel at home in the Rastafarian movement because racism is exposed as it is. I've known Rastas, and they're blunt, saying, okay, this is oppressive, this is wrong. They call things out. Something many churches don't do. But here comes a twist. What are they doing about it? Now, there are some Rastas who start businesses, they become economically active, just have alternatives not to be financially dependent on society. Okay, if they do that, that's all right. But in general, they call out the oppression of the system, but where's the long-term solution? It's missing. And then you have this smoking of pot that becomes the bonding factor within the religion and those who are inspired with the religion. Before I continue, is it clear to you now why the smoking marijuana became vital to the Rastafari movement and how it spread out to other movements worldwide? Is this clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Again, the smoke of marijuana was introduced to cover up the lack of effectiveness. You cannot worship a dead human being and expect long-term good results in life. So you need something to keep the adherents of the religion at ease. Because listen, if you are not focused on Christ, that means you're not Christ-centered. If you're not Christ-centered, you cannot walk in the resurrection part of Christ in daily life and overcome difficulties. If you cannot walk in the resurrection part of Christ, it means the only type of empowerment you can get is paranormal. And that's how, little by little, the Rastafari movement is hinting towards you that you have to try out ancient African mysticism. So the Rastafari movement does not promote explicitly ancient African mysticism, but the lack of effectiveness for its adherence, is covered up by smoking pot. But smoking pot itself can be quite expensive. And in many places in the world, smoking pot is forbidden. So if you live in a country and you adhere to the Rastafari movement and you want to practice the smoking pot, you have to do it undercover, because if you're caught, you can go to prison. So you have the stress of that. And by the way, smoking in itself was something done by witch doctors, or we say chief warlocks and wizards. To some extent also witches. When you smoke tobacco, you are bringing some disconnect into your body temporarily, and this disconnect makes it easier for you to communicate with fallen angels. It's the same with sniffing cocaine. Cocaine is not something new from the 19th century, like many people think. Cocaine existed since ancient times, but it was in a more raw state. The cocaine you have today is bleached, is less in intensity. Cocaine of the past was far more intense, even deadly if you took too much of it. People that use cocaine today, please, if you're on cocaine, please get help, get sober. It's not a good idea. People that use cocaine today, they have a bleached version of it, which is still quite damaging to you. Ancient cocaine was far stronger, and ancient cocaine was used by wizards, chief warlocks who were the witch doctors, and to some extent by witches. So both smoking, tobacco, and the use of cocaine are methods to have paranormal contact with fallen angels. Did you all know? Did you know this? That smoking and sniff cocaine were just methods used by wizards and chief warlocks? Did you know this? Let me know in the live chat. The reason I'm asking is because I want to estimate how far your knowledge is about this topic. So, even apart from the Rastafari movement started in the 1930s, there were a lot of people smoking tobacco in the 1930s, even before that, in the 19th century. A lot of people thought smoking tobacco was a type of status symbol. So a lot of people began to smoke cigars, but because cigars were quite expensive, a bit heavy, they developed the cigarette, the tiny cigar. Well, it has been shown that smoking tobacco can have a bad effect on your lungs. So a lot of companies went to synthetic tobacco, which was even worse. And today, smoke is regarded as very pathetic in general. Only in Asia, there are places where smoking is seen as a status symbol. All right? So smoking did not originate from the Rastafari movement. No, it did not. It's something ancient. But smoking cannabis or smoking marijuana became the main key element in the Rastafari movement, and in the hopes that it would trigger blacks and also other people from other nations would join the religion to go towards African mysticism. And now you end up with the worship of the Orishas and Togun. So, am I saying that the whole Rastafari movement was evil? No. A lot of blacks back then in Jamaica really wanted the colonial oppression to end, rightfully so. That they began to fall for this worship of Haile Selassie, that was completely out of line, absolutely. And many Rastas today don't even worship Haile Selassie, just see him as a symbolic historical figure, which is fine. They're inspired by him. The main thing that's wrong with the Rastafarian religion is this diversion away from relying on Christ. That's it. And the smoke marijuana is key in diverting away from relying on Christ. Because now you rely on smoking pot to get spiritual insights. I'm sorry, if you smoke marijuana and you go into this high, the only enlightenment you can get in that condition is from evil spirits. We're using your temporary euphoric state that's unbalanced to your body to transfer messages onto you. But it's the same when you smoke a cigarette. But when you smoke marijuana, the effects tend to be more direct. All right? I'm not mentioning this to support the war on drugs that's been conducted by the United States. And even in the United States now, there are places where you're allowed to smoke marijuana legally. If you have a license, if you do it in certain ways. In the Netherlands, you have this soft drugs policy, because in the Netherlands was a lot of alcoholism that harmed many families. So the government of the Netherlands came up with the idea, you know what? Let's give another addiction to the public, that's smoking marijuana. Then at least marijuana addiction is more manageable than alcoholism. So with marijuana, people tend to be more calmer than with alcohol. So let's endorse this marijuana thing, but in a controlled way. That has become the backdoor policy of the Netherlands. Interesting name, backdoor policy, because backdoor initiations in which you're anally raped are common in the criminal world. To become an established criminal, because criminality worldwide is so called, to become established as a criminal, you have to go to the backdoor initiation. It means gang raped to be part of the cult. Those are called backdoor initiations. Now the Netherlands give me the backdoor policy. Okay, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out there's a connection between the two. The backdoor policy of the Netherlands comes down to that it's okay for you to sell it if you have a license, but it's not okay for you to cultivate it and import it. But how are you going to sell it if you cannot cultivate nor import it? Well, we don't look at that, how you do it, but you can sell and pay taxes on it. So, the backdoor policy of the Netherlands is slowly being adopted in certain states in the United States because it works in keeping people away from alcoholism. Now, both alcoholism and being addicted to smoking, whether smoking pot or smoking tobacco, are both wrong. Just because people are a bit more calmer when they're into smoking marijuana doesn't mean, oh, we should all promote people smoking marijuana. No. Every addiction is destructive. It's only that keeping people away from alcoholism, to achieve that, marijuana is often a good way to do it. But not always, but often. That's why it's been allowed. So, again, in this live stream, I did not condemn Rastas. I did not condemn the Rasta culture as a whole, because the Rasta culture has good elements in it. It's only that you have this element of escapism that needs to be pushed out of the Rasta culture. You have many movements out there who are not wrong by themselves, but there's a little paranormal twist in it that needs to be avoided. And I just revealed what the paranormal twist is in the Rastafari movement. I say movement because we shouldn't do religion anyway. If something's a social movement, it's fine. The moment the social movement becomes a religion, we need to avoid the religion part, because that means we're in bondage. Again, there are Rastas who are born again believers, but they're just stuck with this paranormal twist of the movement they're part of. Believers can be part of movements as long as the movements they're part of are not hindering them from becoming Christ-centered. Now, some movements should be part of. For example, this movement of Kemetic sciences, which is our ancient African mysticism, you can't be part of that movement and be a born-again believer. It doesn't go hand in hand. So some movements you cannot be part of as a believer. Absolutely not, because they're completely in opposition to Christ. But if a movement has good qualities, but you have a twist in it, purge the twist and let the whole movement turn Christ-centered. That's what Rasta should do. Purge out the worship of Haile Selassie and purge out this obsession with marijuana, and the movement will be more fertile and productive. All right? Do we have any questions about this topic? I'm not done yet with the live stream. I want to ask you already. Do you have any questions? Are there any questions? Let me know. Oh, Maria mentioned, Either beer or wine is called spirits. Well, that's not okay. It's not beer and wine in common state. When you have liquor that has high percentage of alcohol, it's called spirits. Why? Because beverages with high percentage of alcohol were also used in ancient times by pagans to get a high in order to connect with the fallen angels. It's done till this day. You go to a bar or a nightclub, you order some spirits. That means you're ordering liquor with a high percentage of alcohol. Okay. Great. Now the question about shrooms. Okay, shrooms are um, certain mushrooms that are often used to get a high. Well, this also something that was done in ancient times also amongst ancient of Central America, of ancient Babylon, also ancient Egypt. Even the Aztecs had this mushroom, was what they call the divine mushroom also. So mushrooms have been used. Not all mushrooms give you this effect, but there are certain mushrooms can give you this high on the inside. Those mushrooms were often used in ancient religions and also used today to get in contact with the paranormal. A lot of young people today try out drugs or those mushrooms because they think that it's just cool to escape life and get in this intense high. They don't realize that they're opening up themselves for paranormal influences. Oh, and by the way, some of those mushrooms can cause your body to become so disoriented that you end up harming yourself. Some people even ended up jumping off bridges or whatever because after they took some of those mushrooms. So I do not recommend it at all. Okay. Aaron asks, how do we kick out or ban fallen angels from keeping us people this way? You first said they have no big authority. They have no authority at all. No, they don't even have power. They're parasites feed off of us. So what we need to do is we need to expose the paranormal elements in our social movements, and we have to remove the paranormal twist from our movements. Instead of saying, oh, you have those Rastas, it's one big satanic cult, let's ban Rastafarism together, shut it down. By doing that, you'll be going against a big group of people that don't have bad intentions. That's going to cause social conflict, and the social conflict will now be used by demons as food to feed off of us. So what you do is you take, for example, the Rastafari movement, or you take a social justice movement, or any type of movement you have out there, whether it's the green movement or whatever, you take the movement, you look at what are the productive values of this movement, you praise those productive values, at the same time you look at the paranormal twist and you address the paranormal twist and you remove the paranormal twist, and then you purge the social human movements from the paranormal twist, and that's how demons begin to lose a grip over us. Why do you think churches have so many denominations? All those denominations are paranormal twists. Whether it's the Baptist Church, the Reformed Church, or Catholicism, all those church denominations have paranormal twists in them. Remove the twists, paranormal twists, and the movement becomes holy again. For example, you have the green movement, all about preserving the environment we live in. Is there anything wrong with us preserving the environment, being sustainable in how we behave on the earth? There's nothing wrong with that. The earth is our home, by the way. But because the green movement is not Christ-centered, they now turn to other oppressive measures like shaming people that eat meat or blackmailing people not to eat meat or to trick people to embrace veganism, all of that. They turn to all these oppressive methods just to, quote unquote, keep the earth sustainable. And when you tell them that meat consumption is not such a big problem, you show them that a lot of green alternatives can be even more harmful, when you show them facts that their methods may not be the best, a lot tend to turn on you. A lot of people in the green movement have turned into fanatics. Look at the climate activists, how many of them endanger themselves by laying on the roads just to hinder people from driving cars, put themselves and others at risk. The concerns addressed by the green movement can be legitimate. Take the legitimate concerns, address them, and move people away from the paranormal twist. That's how we do with every movement on the earth. Think, for example, about you don't have them today that much anymore, but you had the Puritans, which was a movement in the 16th century. A movement of believers from Britain that want to get away from, no, it was the 16th or 17th century. But anyway, you had this movement of believers who want to get away from the oppressive church in England. So they moved to North America. The Puritans had the attitude that we want to stay away from worldly influences that harm us walking by faith. But at the same time, they adopted other coping mechanisms that kept them back. And that was the downfall of the Puritans. So human movements by themselves don't have to be satanic or wrong in itself. But the moment they don't submit to the leadership of Christ, it goes wrong. All right? And sometimes you have movements that start, and the movements are not wrong in themselves, but you have satanic agents coming in to put a paranormal twist in it. So, for example, let's think about the hip-hop movement. Hip-hop began somewhere in the 1970s in the suburbs of New York, where you had ghetto formation in the black community of the amongst Black Americans. There was a resistance movement against this neglect towards African Americans. During this resistance, you had this subculture amongst the youth that developed. What happened was, very soon, the CIA brought in their satanic agents that tricked the hip-hop movement into this African mysticism. And when you look at hip-hop today, 2023, it's completely different than hip-hop from, let's say, the year 2000 or the 1990s. By the way, Lisan Paresh Crooks, also known as Tupac Shakur, was one of those agents who later decided, I don't want to be part of this. I'm out. And when he switched sides and began to empower the Black community and also other people, it's then that the establishment turned on him. Just so you know, I'm just calling out for what it is. So I'm just telling you, human movements, we can start movements anytime. But the moment a movement delays in submitting to Christ's guidance, that movement will be infiltrated by satanic agents sooner or later. And before you know it, the whole movement is turned upside down and used as a portal to hinder people from getting to Christ. Is it clear to you that human movements need to submit to the leadership of Christ so they are not infiltrated by devil worshippers? Is that clear unto you now? Let me know in the live chat. Well, Aaron, that's what society is. He lied to you. That's how it functions. So understand this. There can be diversity of movements. We shouldn't all be part of one big movement. The universal movement that we all should have is following the Heavenly Father. We can have local movements, like you have green people are in the green movement, others are in the reformed movement, others in the, the Black Power movement. Then you have the, I don't know, whatever movement there is, there in age, whatever. Any movement out there can exist as long as submit to the leadership of Christ. The moment there's no submission to the leadership of Christ, any such movements will be turned upside down. Simple as that. So we shouldn't go around condemning movements, acting out against movements. We should look at how this movement began. Where did it go wrong? Correct the wrong if possible. Now, some movements were initiated by devil worshippers. So you know that whole movement from the start was a trap. If that's the case, we should seek to rescue the people within the movement. But if a movement started by just people wanting better, then find a way to purge the movement. Simple as that. All right? Okay, are there any more questions here? Wait, by the way, the fallen angel Daada, he's an Ogun spirit, so he looks like a black man. He even has rastas. Also, yeah, yes, he has dreadlocks. He looks like the common rasta out there. That's how Daada looks like in his. This is how he looked like in his original state, also now in his fallen state. He's put more crippled and all that, but he looks like a black man with rasta, with dreadlocks. That's how he looks like, with a long beard also. But anyway, this fallen angel Daada is irrelevant at all. I only mention him to give you education about what he is doing. But just that's why I mentioned him. So don't be obsessed with this deity because he's nothing relevant. He's a fallen angel, used to be a heavenly being, living in mansions in heaven, traveling on flying chariots all over the heavens. He used to have a glorious life in the heavens. Now he's a sick, fallen angel with many diseases, a waiting lake of fire, and he wants to bring a lot of people, especially from the black diaspora, in his doom. That's all it is. You can email me. You know my Santo Domingo email. You can email me over there, George. Okay, I have no other questions here. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, keep on creating Christ is most important. And please don't go out there attacking social movements. Be wise how you go about it. Attacking social movements will increase conflict and anxiety, and that's exactly what demons want. If a movement was a satanic trap from the start, you decree against it and you seek to overrule it. If a movement has been hijacked, you make sure you find a way to purge the movement. Simple as that. You can read my email in the description of my videos. I put the email down there, George. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Keep agreeing with Christ and see you next time. God is good all the time. Shalom.